All right, hello and welcome to the first episode of BigBasket presents Decoding Nutrition with me, aka Tanmay. Today we have a very special episode. We have my old friend, Mr. Siddharth Warrier. Sid, welcome.
Thank you.
We are not in each other's respective homes. We are in a studio with a better production budget this time. We are discussing, decoding nutrition and your mental well-being. Food and mood is the theme of today's episode. Yeah. So let's just dive into it.
Let's do it.
Sid.
Yes.
How's it going?
Very good.
I didn't know there were other subjects in neuroscience that we hadn't already spoken about. Anyway, today we are talking about the impact of nutrition on our well-being, especially our mental well-being. I always figured that there is some connection between what we eat and what goes on in our head. But I always assume that the only connection is that if you're not feeling good here, you want to feel good here. So you put things in your mouth to make you feel good in your belly. Yeah.
That is surprisingly accurate. Right? That's pretty much on point.
Why am I eating badly when I'm sad? Why does ice cream make me feel so good?
Is that where we're starting off?
We're starting off with why am I eating ice cream when I'm sad?
Great. It's so relatable. Everybody has been in that situation where you're stressed out and you reach out into the freezer and just grab an ice cream bowl and you're done.
Yeah. You know, people always ask me, Tanmay, how come you put on weight? Was it emotional eating? Just assuming that my whole childhood was traumatic and that's why I ate.
So the first thing you have to remember is that when we are born, food is the only reward that we have. Food is the only thing that we are living for. Food is the only association that we have with happiness or fulfillment. So जब बच्चा पैदा होता है तो when the mother feeds him or her, that primitive network is established right then. Just something in your mouth. And later on, it's not even about food. So that's why pacifiers work. Just as long as you're sucking your thumb, that becomes an offshoot of that same thing.
So are you telling me people who have oral fixation, like I'm always chewing on my t-shirt when I'm thinking or chewing on my pen, that is neurologically pleasing because of some connection to food when we were born?
Correct. So when you have something that you're playing with your lips, sometimes people pull their lips or bite their lips. Anything in this oral area stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. In English, in normal English, it calms you down. So when you're chewing something, it just calms you down. So a lot of the stress eating is not about the eating bit. It's actually the chewing bit. As long as you're chewing something, you are feeling better.
What is it called?
Parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes. So in your body, there is like a seesaw. On the one side, there is sympathetic, which increases during stress. And on the other side, there is parasympathetic, which calms you down. Food tips the seesaw onto the parasympathetic side.
So this is why I'm comfort eating, which is if I have a stressful day, that pav bhaji at the end of the day makes me feel really good.
Correct.
And I'm assuming this is also something that goes back into your childhood, which is food that gave you joy as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, people always say, "Maa ke haath ka khana." That's all. It's all related to your childhood, which is what gave you joy as a kid is what still calms you down.
Absolutely, because you associate food with comfort and you associate comfort with home. So whatever reminds you of home, technically, will give you that sense of safety. So you have food that you used to eat as a kid and you're happy. I have had people who rediscover Cerelac.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Which is, as adults, if you eat Cerelac, that gives you pleasure?
It's super weird, but they have... I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, try it once.
To have Cerelac?
Have a spoon and see if something gets triggered. It is surprisingly interesting.
Really?
Yes.
Oh man. Dude, can we arrange for some Cerelac today? I want to try it on the show.
Do you want to do it now?
I mean, if we can arrange for some, that would be insane. I mean, Cerelac could make for an interesting dessert, right? Like you put in some raisins in it. Or
it's kind of like kheer in a way if you make it. But those taste buds that get activated, it's really interesting.
I have some very dirty jokes I want to make right now. I'm just going to avoid it. Oh man, interesting. So net people indulge in emotional eating because when we were born, our parasympathetic nervous system would feel calmed down or would be activated because you ate food.
Correct. So the simplest way to think of it is if there is any animal or any human being, they have a needle that is taking them towards food. And what is taking them towards food is hunger. So when they're hungry, they're stressed. The seesaw tips towards sympathetic. And then there is a drive to search for food. They look around. Where is their food? Where is their food? They will cry. It's a cry for help, a cry for food. As soon as they're given food, that seesaw tips to parasympathetic. Now they're calm. Now they're calm for a while until they're hungry again. And then again it becomes sympathetic. This is the most simplest seesaw of every living thing.
So induced stress can lead to hunger?
Absolutely, because when you are stressed, you may not really know the source of the stress. So if you are not mindful of it, you may feel that stress ho raha hai. And what is the earliest stress response that you've learned?
Food eating.
So you might just resort to that.
हाँ, बचपन में बच्चा रो रहा है तो बच्चे को कुछ खिला दो.
Right.
बच्चा stops crying, which means that okay, if I'm feeling stress, if I eat, my problems have gone away.
Which is interesting because even parents don't often know why is the kid crying. And so parents का भी एक response हो जाता है कि अच्छा जो भी हो चलो खाना खिला के देखते हैं, अगर बंद हो गया तो ठीक है, नहीं तो फिर और कारण ढूंढेंगे.
Interesting.
So we carry that response even as adults.
So if I'm a student and I'm feeling really stressed during exams, just periodic meals will help me calm down?
Yes, it actually will. Because too much of sympathetic is detrimental to focus, to attention. You can't focus if you're too stressed out. So having a little amount of food, just tipping it a little bit towards parasympathetic helps you calm down. Now you can work, now you can focus.
Interesting.
The problem is that you never eat a little. If you're too stressed out, you might eat so much that it completely shifts and the problem is still there, but now you are no longer interested in solving it. Which is why a lot of people go into that emotional eating cycle where they're stressed out, they eat, they feel like the problem is solved. It's actually not. And then when they realize that the problem is not solved, they get more stressed out again. And then they eat again. So that is that. It's like a spiral.
Oh, that's why people say that, oh, did you put on weight because you're an emotional eater? Because source of stress when you're overweight is the fact that you're overweight and all the problems that come with it. And to deal with it, you eat more food that makes you more overweight. So that's the spiral. Interesting.
And there is another offshoot to this. The more overweight you are, the more inflammation is happening in your body. So fat in itself is a pro-inflammatory state. Obesity is a pro-inflammatory state. Just inflammation from any reason, any cause leads to stress.
I keep hearing about the word inflammation. What does it actually mean in simple terms?
In simple terms, your body is supposed to take care of itself, fight against infection. So there are molecules in the body which are inflammatory cells that are designed to act as like nanobots. They will go, they will find a virus or a bacteria and they will kill it. Anything that is wrong in the body, these inflammatory cells will go and kill it.
So if your body is inflamed, isn't that good? Because if you're in a state of inflammation, you have more inflammatory cells.
It is good to a particular point. So if there is no inflammation, if your body was incapable of creating inflammation, you would be in a bad state because any infection can come and take over your body. You need those inflammatory cells. The problem is what happens if there is an inflammatory cell rise without an infection? Now your body thinks it is under attack. It's actually not. And so it is looking for a target.
So if there are too many inflammatory cells, what happens?
So that leads to every single organ of your body gradually deteriorating. So it increases aging, to put it simply. A hyperinflammatory state increases aging. So your brain suffers, your heart suffers, your liver suffers, kidney suffers. So a pro-inflammatory state has a negative impact on the whole body.
Understood. Okay, coming back to the exam question, you mentioned that if you are in a sympathetic state, which is causing you stress, that's not ideal to be able to focus deeply. Yeah. Are there specific foods that help you increase focus? Because not everybody is just going to eat Cerelac during exams.
No, neither should they.
Yeah.
So the connection between food and focus is very interesting. Human evolution happened, and one of the theories of why human evolution happened the way it did was that we had access to fish. So evolution started along the riverbeds and the ocean, like shores, and we had access to fish. Fish had, there's a molecule called DHA. The full form is docosahexaenoic acid. It is one of the omega-3 fatty acids. Now, omega-3 fatty acids, and specifically DHA, helps in forming membranes of the brain.
Okay.
It helps to form brain cells.
Okay.
Because we switched to a diet which was rich in this, encephalization happened, which basically means your brain grew larger in size.
Okay.
So there is a correlation between animals that are close to the ocean or on the shore versus deep in the jungle.
Oh, interesting.
And there is a difference in brain size.
Oh, wow.
So one of the theories as to why did we evolve like this was because we were eating food that helped our brain grow faster. And we were able to focus better. We were able to remember more.
That's omega-3 fatty acids.
Omega-3 fatty acids. So that is one of the most well-researched molecule for brain growth, for cognition.
Yeah. You know, I'm having that moment, you know, the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio, like...
I know this.
Yeah. So the second you said omega-3 fatty acids, I had that moment because widely prescribed, almost for any deficiency you have.
Correct.
Can we talk a little bit about omega-3 fatty acids and why is that something that every nutritionist I've gone to has said you need more of this?
Now, here is the problem, okay. I love reading about research and I love finding these new things. But at the same time, I believe that there is an oversimplification that happens. We look for easy answers.
Of course.
Right?
To reduce cognitive overload.
Right. Yeah. So now we have this word, omega-3 fatty acid. Yeah. Great. Now I can just bombard everything and put everything on that. Yeah. And then 10 years later, we'll find another molecule and that will become the hottest new molecule in the circuit. Yeah. The answer is more nuanced and therefore more tiring. The truth is that there is no single brain food that you can take and all your problems are solved.
Of course.
Right. So the whole concept of focus is that you are able to modulate your attention. And food is a small part of it.
Of course.
The main purpose of food is to give your brain enough nutrition, enough energy to pay attention and not eat foods that lower your cognition.
Correct. It's not like badam khane se your IQ points will go up. That's basically what you're saying.
Correct. Right? But there are foods that you can take that will inhibit focus.
Create like a mahal where your brain can function better.
Perfect.
That's max what food can do.
Correct. So nutrition is a support system. It's not the solution.
Got it. It's literally a supplement for your exam. It's not.
It's pretty much.
Interesting. Another thing that people do when they want to focus, people often say, oh, I just want my cup of coffee and I'm going to sit down and I know I'll get through this, assignment or task. Yeah. What is the connection of focus to coffee?
So caffeine is a stimulant. So caffeine increases your sympathetic drive. It increases
sympathetic drive, okay.
Right. So it increases alertness.
Does nicotine also increase your sympathetic drive? I've heard that episode of Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, so it does. Nicotine there are receptors in your brain for nicotine. So there are nicotinic receptors that modulate attention. And when you smoke up or when you smoke tobacco or you consume tobacco in any way, that nicotine does go into the brain and act on those receptors.
Please don't go and smoke saying ki focus badhta hai sutta marne se. That's not what we're saying.
It doesn't. What happens in the long term though is that if you're dependent on an external molecule, then it's not sustainable because everything will have its own side effects and eventually that side effect will stop you from consuming that.
Correct.
And then your focus is gone.
Correct.
So the good thing is that your body is already born with all the chemicals it needs for adequate focus. With caffeine, it's like a two-layered answer. first and most important, I feel, is the placebo effect.
Which is
beyond anything else. Ki haath mein coffee hai, therefore I am a focused person.
Yeah.
It's just that exactly. Now we are focused people doing focused podcasts.
Yeah.
Because haath mein coffee hai. But at the molecular level, what it does is there is a chemical called adenosine.
Adenosine.
Right. So coffee affects adenosine and reduces sleep.
Okay.
So that's what caffeine does.
It reduces sleep.
Yeah, it reduces the onset of sleep.
Adenosine is the opposite of melatonin.
So when coffee modulates adenosine, your sleep cycle, caffeine affects your sleep cycle. It shifts you towards sympathetic. And your attention increases for that much time. If I were to bet on it, I would still say that the placebo effect is more.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, that's interesting. That coffee pushes the needle towards the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Whereas food that gives you comfort shifts you towards the parasympathetic state of your nervous system. Is this why eating food makes you sleepy? Or eating heavy comfort food makes you sleepy?
Eating high calorie, high carbohydrate rich diet, because you're so much into parasympathetic that you are asleep.
This is why I like to eat my dinner late, because it helps me sleep way quicker when my belly is full.
Yeah. Because when you are hungry, especially if you're not used to it or your body is not used to it, hunger is a threat.
Correct.
Your body needs to be trained to go beyond that instinctive feeling. That just because you're hungry does not mean you're in danger.
Correct.
So that's like a very childlike response, which most of us haven't learned, to be fair. Out of 8 billion people, most of us will still associate hunger with threat.
Can you train your mind and body to understand that hunger is not a threat? Because why is hunger a threat? Because, since the time we were cavemen, if you went hungry for very long, it meant that you're not getting access to food, which means your tribe is under threat, or you need to go hunting to get so-and-so, so-and-so. But how do I train my mind and body that hunger isn't a threat? I mean, for example, I've been trying fasting, and it gets easier after you do it for 3 or 4 weeks. 16 hours becomes easy now.
Yeah.
So the way to train your mind and body to not treat hunger as a stress trigger is to just go hungry for longer and then eat.
And then eat. That's not a small thing. I think of it as training a child or training a pet. The child is afraid that agar khana nahi mila to kabhi bhi khana nahi milega. Because our limbic system or the old primitive brain cannot think into the future. So if it's hungry now, it thinks it'll be hungry forever. And that's why the panic goes on increasing. But this is a natural evolution in our neuroscience knowledge. Everybody hates the limbic initially.
But then you realize that limbic system also responsible for other positive
all
things.
The good things in
all
life.
All the good things in life, yeah.
So that's the payoff.
Yeah.
It's like a toxic relationship.
It really is.
So when you're hungry, your limbic system needs to be trained that if you're hungry now, you will get food. It's not that you will go hungry forever. You are not dying. So every time you fast for 16 hours and you eat food, your limbic is learning that, it's okay.
There's light at the end of the
If you have a dog, the first time you've left your dog for even an hour, it might go, crazy. But then gradually you train it, and then you can go for 4 hours, 5 hours, and you'll come back and the dog is nicely sleeping, calm, because he knows that he can trust you to come back. That's pretty much what the limbic system is. It's just a scared dog.
I want to ask you as a neurologist, have you done some hacks to train your brain? Since you were a student of neurology, you slowly start understanding that, the brain is basically like a pet.
Yeah.
And then you train your pet to do certain things. Are there any hacks that you have tried to trick your mind into doing things that are good for you?
So I used to do this thing, I still do it, where I ask myself, where is the needle? All right. Now, imagine that there is a speedometer in your brain, and on one side is your prefrontal cortex, your evolved rational. On the other side is your limbic. At any given point of time, you or your consciousness is somewhere along that spectrum. Now you think you are one person, but you're actually multiple people.
Yeah. So when you're stressed, it's more towards your limbic. When you're angry, it's more towards your limbic.
Yes.
When you're with your loved ones and feeling really nice and happy, it's more towards your limbic.
Correct.
When you're social with many people, public speaking in a social gathering, or doing some sort of an intellectual exercise, that's more towards the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, the more mindful you are, the more in control you are, the more it is in the prefrontal cortex.
To simply put, yeah.
At any given point of time, I just ask myself, wait, where are you?
Got it.
Are you in limbic or are you in PFC? And
like right now, we're both in PFC.
Right now, we're in PFC. We're talking about food in a very detached way, as if it doesn't matter to us. As soon as the podcast is over, "Arey, khana mangao yaar."
Yeah.
So then we are in limbic.
Correct.
So I realized that this question is important because I have tried dieting many times in college and all that. And I realized that the person who plans the diet and the
PFC.
person who orders the food are very different
Two different
people.
states, yeah.
So PFC orders, but limbic eats.
Got it. So you ask yourself, where's the needle right now? Is
Correct.
it in PFC or is it in limbic?
Correct.
And then?
And as soon as you realize that, you want to do things that push the needle towards PFC.
PFC. Isn't the act of asking yourself this question a PFC driven act?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Just seeing that the needle is in limbic is enough to start pushing it towards PFC.
So being mindful
Yeah.
is a prefrontal cortex driven activity.
Correct.
You're effectively making your PFC become stronger so it can compete with your limbic system.
Exactly that. Suppose if there's somebody in road rage, okay, he's gotten out of the car and he's really angry. If he can just say that I am having road rage, the needle will shift to PFC.
That's too funny and interesting.
But the thing with limbic.
This is what the being mindful movement is all about.
Correct.
It is to shift the balance to your PFC.
Correct. That's what journaling is about. You are sad, you are crying, and the more the needle is in limbic, the less words you have. Because limbic doesn't understand words.
The more you articulate your feelings, you are forcing your PFC to recognize what your limbic system is going through, and hence calming you down.
Exactly.
Oh,
so
that's
put
beautiful.
words to it. Whatever you're feeling, put words to it, you'll find the needle going towards PFC.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you started asking yourself this question more often.
Right. So where are you? Are you in PFC or are you in limbic? And the more neuroscience I learned all the little stations along the way. That PFC and limbic are extremes, but there are small little stations along.
Like, do you have names for these stations? And why is one of them called Dadar?
Dadar is the worst.
Dadar is the worst.
Because you can go anywhere from Dadar.
Everything is limbic in Dadar. There is no room for PFC.
Yeah, and there's a machi market right there.
Yeah, so these stations between limbic and PFC.
Yeah, so there are stations between the two. And the more neuroscience you learn, the more you can give words to it. So you're not in extremes. You know, it's not like I love you, I hate you. मतलब बीच में बहुत कुछ होता है. Just like that. So limbic and PFC के बीच में there is, conflict junction and there is different areas that do different things.
This is a separate pod altogether. I would love to deep dive a whole hour into just this, which is in what state of mind you're at and where's your needle.
Exactly.
Just that.
So we think of ourselves as one whole sorted person, but that's not true.
Yeah, every single stimulant on the external puts you at a new station.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Pretty much. Exactly. So coming to food hacks, I've tried out a lot. The only thing that works is making sure that you know what you are eating in the next meal. At least 4 hours before.
Okay, can you elaborate?
So, and this stems from the conversation that we were having. If PFC is deciding the diet, let PFC order the food. The closer you are to the moment of eating, the closer the needle is to limbic. And if the needle is in limbic, you are not ordering rationally.
Okay, let me rationalize this in my own way and let me try and explain.
Yeah.
So, for example, I've lost a bunch of weight in the last year.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And I did a few things differently now than what I have previously done. For example, I have a salad service in my house, which is one meal of the day is guaranteed coming in, which is just greens and protein and really healthy stuff.
Yeah.
So I let my PFC decide what my meal is going to be. And another thing that happened was that I had someone come and start cooking for me, and they would come in the morning. So then I realized that, hey, The problem really arises at my dinner, because if I eat the salad in the afternoon, I still have to make another choice for my dinner. And the longer that I wait, the more likely I'm going to make a bad choice.
Correct.
So then I just ask them to deliver the salad later on in the day. So then at like 5 p.m. when the salad comes in, my natural reaction is, oh, this is going to be my dinner. So the choice was already made for me. Okay. So in a sense, if you pre-plan your meals, it helps you stay on track.
Yes, let PFC choose.
Let PFC choose and put yourself in a situation where you have to follow your PFC's order.
Correct. Which is so interesting because our grandparents grew up in a society where a lot of those decisions were already taken. So I feel that...
What do you mean? A lot of those decisions were already taken means?
Okay. Human society has always struggled with this PFC limbic debate, right?
Correct.
So the only way to solve for discipline is to not have these choices. कि ये time पे ये खाना है, ये time पे ये है. Everything was already decided.
Yeah. These are all problems of abundance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And olden times where problems were of scarcity.
Yes.
So if you're in a certain situation, only certain types of food were available to you. So that's what you gotta eat.
Correct. So there's no problem of choice. And जो भी choice है वो पहले ही बन चुका है. It's not कि वो time पे we are scrolling through, an eating app or an order app and we are figuring out कि क्या खाना है.
I was just going to say, man, like Swiggy and Zomato and food ordering apps have made it so easy to be a slave to my limbic system.
Because we never order 4 hours in advance.
Yeah, we always order when we're hungry right now.
Correct. Imagine if we can pre-book कि अभी deliver मत करो. 8 बजे रात को deliver करना है. But मैं order कर रहा हूँ सुबह को. The choices will be so much healthier.
Oh, that's amazing actually.
But we don't do that, right? We will do it at the moment of hunger.
Correct.
And that moment of hunger is always limbic. PFC doesn't have a chance.
Why is my limbic system so attracted to biryani?
Oh, that's a you problem. No, actually, it's a high carbohydrate diet, right? So it's instant energy. It's a lot of spices. You're already, your mouth is watering.
Coming back. So you were saying, which is right then and there, when we order, we're slaves to our limbic system. So
correct.
Make sure the decision is for what to eat is by our PFC.
The hack is always to not order in limbic. Don't decide your food while in limbic.
I realize that sometimes I make dinner plans to go out to a restaurant and eat dinner with friends. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this one big meal at the end of the day. And I rationalize to myself saying, okay, I fasted for 16 hours today. So I can afford to have this, 1200 calorie.
Earned it.
I've earned it. And I realize now that because I have put myself in that stressed mode where I want to eat almost immediately, I inevitably go over calorie because I'm going to the restaurant and ordering.
Okay.
Instead, if I pre-order, in fact, in Indian weddings, we don't know what the menu is going to be. But in weddings in America and Western cultures, you can decide what you're going to eat on
chicken
the day.
Fish.
Chicken or fish. Yeah, you can decide before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
In an Indian wedding, Indian wedding is a great example. You are standing in line, you finish all of that, uske baad you just want to eat, and there is so much options.
Correct.
You are not in PFC. You will eat everything.
Yeah. The whole Indian wedding experience is a limbic driven experience. Everything is limbic driven.
Everything is limbic.
I really want to get married. Who do I get? Whoever I see next, I will get married.
Whatever I see next, I will eat.
Yeah. But if it was a PFC driven decision, like when you were 5 years old and you decide that someday in the future I want to marry someone like this. Anyway.
Not advocating child marriage.
Yeah. Just, no one was advocating it, but now he said the word child marriage, so just chop that line out. So this is a great framework, which is let your PFC be in control for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Wow, this actually solves for so many problems, not just with food, but emotional decisions.
So there's a small little hack here. When you said you go to a restaurant and you over order, if you are going there with someone you trust, order for each other. As simple as...
Because you will not over order for someone else.
Let them order for you and you order for them. So immediately your limbic has no skin in the game.
That's a super interesting.
Even if you are hungry, you're just hoping that they will order something high calorie for you, but you don't have a say in it, and you will order something healthy for them. Because now your needle is in PFC. Our needle is always in PFC when it comes to other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because limbic is selfish.
Limbic is selfish. And PFC wants to be perceived as being liked for others always?
No. PFC just wants to do what is sensible, what it thinks is rational. So if somebody says, hey, listen, can you order for me? I'm trying to eat healthy. You will immediately look at the salad. You're not ordering chole bhature. But if it's for you, now it's personal.
It's 5 choles and 7 bhatures for me.
Green salad for her.
I just realized that this framework answers so many other questions. Now I'm like, I keep hearing sometimes I'll be in a foul mood because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Like people call this, you're hangry.
Yeah.
You're angry because of hunger. What is this phenomena?
Again, a childhood remnant when if you're hypoglycemic or if your sugar levels...
What does hypoglycemic mean?
So if you don't eat for a long time, your energy levels, your sugar levels can drop.
Correct.
Now, hypoglycemia is a medical condition. So sugar levels have gone below, 75 or 70, 60. But what is perceived hypoglycemia could be that your sugar levels have just dropped below what you are comfortable with. And that is a trigger. Your body can recognize that and think, kuch to problem hai. And you are now stressed out. And the commonest response to stress is either anxiety or anger. Because we have to do something. So, okay, let me quickly look for a solution or find someone to blame for this. So hanger, so to speak, is hunger leading to outbursts. So you're already stressed out. And when somebody else comes with some random question or just disturbs you in some way, you're already stressed out. You think, ye koi time hai, ye puchne ka. Let me eat something. So our body cannot, or our brain cannot differentiate between sources of stress.
Understood. It reminds me of that really popular Snickers campaign.
Yes.
Remember? Like, oh, jab teko bhook lagta hai to heroin ban jati hai or something like that. Wow, I didn't know there was a neurological thought behind that campaign. Who would have thought? Okay, so Sid, next up, I want to tackle something that I've always found super interesting, okay? So I get my blood work done fairly regularly now. And I love sitting and observing my blood report. And because of my dumb brain, I just compare, 3 months ago, number next to triglyceride was this. Now it go up and it's in optimal range. But I don't know what a bunch of these mean. So I'm just sending you my reports.
Sure.
And without divulging super sensitive information, if we can look at a blood report and understand what each term means.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so I've sent you the blood report. There's just a bunch of different parameters that you can choose to measure when you get your blood work done. But let's go through the most common ones that people often do. Let's go through cholesterol. Okay, I think if you come on page 10.
So I like the idea of a blood report as a metric to check for nutrition. So we do this all the time. And the first thing we look at is hemoglobin. So your blood work usually starts off with hemoglobin and CBC, that is complete blood count. That shows how much infection fighting capacity you have. If there is any underlying inflammation, especially there is a test called ESR, which is erythrocyte sedimentation rate. That is a marker for inflammation. And there's another test called CRP, which is C-reactive protein. So ESR, CRP are good markers of underlying inflammation in the body.
Which is to see,
Right? And hemoglobin is a good marker for overall nutrition also. So if your vitamin levels are low, B12 is low, folic acid is low, if your iron intake is low, hemoglobin drops. So that's called anemia. So that is one of the first things I see when I get a blood report. And even here, they usually arrange the report in a way that you're supposed to go deeper and deeper. So hemoglobin is the first thing you see.
Let's see my hemoglobin.
Correct. So I think that's on page 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so my hemoglobin levels is
great.
normal.
Yes,
in this.
that's absolutely okay.
Yes.
And next up, there's 4 lines below. There's a test called MCV. Just below.
MCV.
That's mean corpuscular volume.
Okay.
That shows the size.
Sorry, what does MCV mean? Can you say that again?
It shows the size of your RBCs.
Size of my RBCs.
Right. So mean corpuscular
like
volume
6
is
inches, 8 inches, like that.
yeah, pretty much. And they say size doesn't matter, but there is this is a marker for B12 levels and iron deficiency.
Okay, so the MCV, which is
mean corpuscular volume,
is a measure of the size of your
RBCs,
red blood cells.
Correct.
And this indicates whether there is a vitamin B12 deficiency or no.
Correct. So when your B12 levels are low, your RBC size increases. There's something called macrocytosis. So MCV goes above 100. Too much?
B12, I keep hearing this vitamin B12 deficiency. It's fairly common. Vitamin D deficiency is also very common.
Yeah.
What does B12 and D do?
B12 has multiple roles. The 2 main ones that we'll talk about today is it plays a role in forming RBCs, so red blood cells. If that is low, your hemoglobin is low, your oxygen carrying capacity is low.
Got it. Okay.
And B12 has another important function, which is in the brain. It acts as a signal conductor. So if B12 is low, your brain cells can't talk to each other.
Okay.
So I have had patients who are completely zonked. They act like they're drunk. They can't walk. They can't balance themselves.
Because of B12 deficiency?
Because of B12 deficiency.
Insane.
And you give 5 days of injection and they're up and back. Absolutely. So this is the first step. So when we look at somebody's blood work, we look at the hemoglobin levels as a start.
Got it.
From there, we go deeper. Right? So the next thing we look at is your kidney and your liver, which is on your page 1. Again, your reports are absolutely normal. But when you have malnutrition, one of these can go wrong. Like your liver function test there can be a problem in your liver function test, or there can be a problem in your kidney.
Got it.
If these are good, we are relaxed.
Got it. And the blood test has a separate section called the kidney function test.
Yes. So kidney function test has your creatinine, your sodium, and your potassium. These are the main 3 ones. So if there's something wrong with your kidney, one of these 3 things can go wrong. And your liver function test there are tests called SGOT, SGPT, and your bilirubin levels. Again, in malnutrition, these can go wrong. So your first 2 levels of reports are fine. Now we go to cholesterol. So this is how usually doctors see a blood work report.
Got it. In terms of like decreasing order of importance is what we call it. Like the obvious markers of health.
Correct. So if there's something wrong in these first 2 pages, that's like a very serious issue.
Got it. Okay.
Now we go to the next, which is usually your blood sugar levels. If that is normal, then we go to lipids, which is cholesterol.
So speaking of sugar levels, you're often told to get your blood work done in a fasted state.
Yes.
Which is, I'm assuming, because in a fasted state, obviously when you've had food and then you take your blood work, you see a glucose spike. So they ask you to take the blood test in a fasted state to see your base level of glucose.
Correct.
That is why.
Correct.
My glucose levels are normal. Thank you very much.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's broadly decent. I compared it with a couple of other comedian friends. And I was like, kya fayda padle hone ka? Jab mera glucose tumse better hai. Coming to cholesterol.
Yeah.
So there is this thing that I always have a discussion with some doctors. So there are different types of cholesterol. People always say, I have a cholesterol issue.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, a doctor ne bola ki mera cholesterol issue hai. Yeah. So I just want to double click on this, which is there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol.
Yes. The story of cholesterol has been an interesting one because we started off thinking, oh, cholesterol, just another random thing, utna kuch focus karne ki zarurat nahi hai. And then we realized that cholesterol is very important. Then we feel that cholesterol is what is causing a lot of problems. And currently, the state of medical thinking is that cholesterol is getting a bad rep because of something called bystander effect.
Okay, bystander effect. Okay.
Now, suppose if a building catches fire, the firemen will come. Now, for a casual observer, they will keep thinking that every time there's a building on fire, there are firemen around. And they might associate that the firemen
are causing
the fire.
Too funny.
Now, the current theory is that what if cholesterol is like that? So what if something is causing harm to a blood vessel and cholesterol comes to stop that harm?
So people assume that cholesterol is causing the harm.
So atherosclerosis is when the blood arteries and the veins, the blood vessels get blocked. And that block is usually caused by cholesterol. Right? Multiple things, but cholesterol is a big part of it. And so we obviously start blaming that. But what if it was trying to stop the harm? It was trying to stop inflammation from happening.
So the medical community is now debating what the role of cholesterol is.
Correct. So there is nobody is saying that a high cholesterol level is not problematic, but that is a symptom, not the disease.
Interesting.
So the concept of bad cholesterol, there is a question mark around it. Because it is basically your body trying to solve a problem. And we are looking at the cholesterol, but that is not the real problem.
I'm feeling bad for the bad cholesterol.
Exactly.
Because we've called it bad cholesterol all these years.
It's so judgmental.
Guys, we're putting bad cholesterol in state of limbic.
So terrible.
Really mean.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. But for the sake of this blood report, even in the blood report, you get something called an HDL cholesterol. A non-HDL cholesterol and an LDL cholesterol. Then there's always this ratio of good to bad, or rather total cholesterol and bad cholesterol.
Correct. So when you eat something, your food gets broken down into carbohydrates, proteins, fats. That is lipids. Lipid gets absorbed, sent into the liver with using a series of molecules. So at first there is something called chylomicrons, and then there is, once it gets into the liver, you get all these different lipoproteins. So high density lipoprotein is HDL, low density lipoprotein is LDL, and VLDL is very low density lipoprotein. And eventually it gets stored as triglycerides.
Got it, okay.
Right? So triglyceride is what gets eventually converted to adipose tissue, which is fat.
Correct.
And we need that for a rainy day. If you don't get enough energy from somewhere else, we take that into our body. We'll use it for glycogen, glucose, and we will use that for energy.
So like all things, triglycerides to a certain degree is good.
Yes.
If it's too high, that's bad.
Correct. So if it is too high, it is a symptom of something. Now, the reason that HDL is considered as good cholesterol and LDL was considered as bad cholesterol was a high level of LDL was associated with heart attacks.
Got it.
So people notice that whoever is getting a heart attack seem to be having a high level of LDL. And they thought this is causing that. But like I said, what if it's not? What if the LDL was trying to solve a problem and the actual problem was inflammation?
Okay, got it.
That's what is happening.
So this is still like something that's being discussed in the medical community. Got it. Okay. Okay, that was super interesting. Now, hopefully this is useful for some of you folks when you sit and look at your blood work. I always look at what's highlighted. That's usually the only problem.
Yes.
If there's something in bold, that's the one that you got to look at.
Nobody highlights something to say good job.
Good job. Yeah. I wish they did that. She's like, hey, optimal range. Nice one. Dude, so I was at a friend's house recently and he was hosting like a party, and he was also on a date. And in one of his cupboards, didn't go snooping. I went to pick up a snack. I saw this product there, which was like this piece of gum that's supposed to sexually stimulate you. Right? We call this aphrodisiac or whatever. Right? Like, we've all heard of strawberries are an aphrodisiac. Chocolate is an aphrodisiac. In fact, there are products in the US now which are marketing themselves as, edibles that are aphrodisiacs.
Yeah.
How do these work? Like, why am I horny after a strawberry?
There were multiple food items that have been associated as aphrodisiacs, that were sold as aphrodisiacs. Strawberry is one, chocolate is one.
Correct.
Oysters.
Yeah.
Now, there are 3 theories around why some foods can be an aphrodisiac. One is that they look like sex organs. I'm not even joking. It's really, human beings are that
That's
naive.
stupid. No, I have never looked at a human being that looks like a dairy milk.
Yeah.
वो girl, वो बंदी कितनी cute है यार, क्या dairy milk लग रही है? Like no one ever says that.
So that's reason number one. The reason I'm saying this is because when they did controlled trials, there was no effect like that.
Oh really?
Yes. Which is not to say that all of them are absolutely useless.
लोग oyster चाट रहे और बोले सर कुछ हो नहीं रहा है actually.
So there are a few edibles. There are a few things that you can eat that have a vasodilator effect. Okay, so there are some chemicals in them that increases vasodilation. So that can help in having or maintaining an erection. Like for example, I read about watermelons. Watermelons are considered an aphrodisiac.
Oh really?
Yes, but there's a chemical in watermelon called citrulline, which is a vasodilator. Now
What is a vasodilator?
Vasodilator means your blood vessel can become
Thinner?
Dilated. More blood flow.
More blood flow. Got it. Okay.
So sort of like Viagra, like how Viagra works.
Got it.
Viagra was initially created as a vasodilator for the heart. So people who are having heart attacks, your arteries constrict. So you create a molecule that will enlarge the artery so more blood flow happens.
More blood can go. But of course, we used it for many other
because they
purposes.
found out that heart so theek nahi ho raha hai, but everybody was getting an erection.
Yeah.
So they just sold it like that, which is a great pivot.
What an interesting... Oh, absolutely. I didn't know this story about Viagra.
I think Pfizer, the company, they made billions out of just this accidental product. So there are food items that can do that. But in watermelon, the citrulline chemical is mostly found in the seeds, which nobody eats. So they just have watermelons and throw out the seed and wonder कि यार कुछ हो क्यों नहीं रहा है. So there are some food items that have these vasodilator effects. But other than that, most of it is placebo. Which is not to say it's wrong. You can still have it. But in big trials, it doesn't stand out. In fact, there was a study that showed that chocolate as an aphrodisiac, not only does it not work,
it's a deterrent.
Yeah, especially women who eat a lot of chocolate would be less likely to have sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is it a deterrent?
So I'll tell you why it was initially considered as an aphrodisiac, because it has a chemical called phenylethylamine. I think I'm saying that right. It is a mood stimulator. So when you eat chocolate, you initially feel you feel good, you feel happy. There's a sugar rush. And because your mood is overall better, and if you're in a romantic situation, you might like, theek hai, let's have sex. But there's no chemical in it that acts as an aphrodisiac by itself. It is a mood stimulator.
Got it.
But if you eat a lot of chocolate, you're getting a sugar rush.
And there's a crash, there's a glucose crash at the end of it, which instantly makes you sleepy.
And you're also done, right? If you're very happy and if you've had a lot of chocolate, you don't need any more cravings.
Stimulants, yeah.
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Got it.
So basically, if you give your girlfriend a lot of chocolate on Valentine's Day, that's not going to work.
She's like, I'm out, bro. I'm just going to sleep now. So basically, dairy milk hatao, tarboos lao is the net
tagline.
Is the net takeaway. Okay, got it. What is the effect of fasting on your brain?
The first effect is our brain learns to deal with the stress of not eating.
Got it, of course.
The power of saying no. Basically, with the prefrontal cortex learning to say no, the act of not eating is the biggest rebellion that your PFC can do. So initially, the limbic is like a cranky child. Ki nahi, khana hai, khana hai, khana hai. And the more you say no, you are empowering your PFC. You're basically learning self-control. You're learning discipline. Beyond all other benefits, as a neurologist, I believe this is the most prominent one. Because if you can overcome this craving, you can overcome a lot of other cravings. Because the network is the same. PFC saying do and limbic saying give me and PFC saying no. That network is the same. So for me, that is the biggest advantage. If you can learn to fast, you're learning self-control, you're learning discipline.
Do new neurons talk to each other every time you say no to your limbic system?
Yes. It's neuroplasticity. You create new networks. And so every time you say no, it becomes a little stronger and stronger. So dieting is hardest at the start. And it gets easier later.
And is there any data behind 28 days makes you more neuroplastic? Like people keep saying, oh, if you do something for 28 days, it becomes a lot easier after.
So absolutely. But if you do for 29 days, it'll be even better. So,
thanks.
Yeah, so that's the thing. The reason
professional neurologist here, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just saying.
Are you a mathematician also?
Yes.
29 greater than 28. Wow, that's a crazy one.
Yeah, so 28 days, 21 days, it's a very arbitrary number, but people need that. If I tell you that do this for the rest of your life, you're not doing it even for a week. But if I tell you 21 days, pakka.
Yeah.
And after 21 days, I'll tell you one more batch of 21 days. It'll be
lot easier.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. So it's just another helpful framework.
Yes, absolutely. So the other thing that fasting does is it gradually shifts your brain's reliance on glucose. Now your brain can only use glucose and ketone.
Correct. So it reduces reliance on glucose and starts using ketones for energy.
And the effect of ketones in your brain is interesting because your brain becomes sharper, more focused. It can pay more attention when it is relying on keto. Does not mean that you have to go on a keto diet to do that. But we are still finding out the effects of ketones in the brain. The maximum number of studies have been done on seizure patients. So in seizure patients, high amount of ketone actually acts as a modulator. Seizures slow down. Your thinking becomes clearer. So prolonged fasting or long-term fasting can have that effect. So people have had increased focus, increased attention if they are fasting regularly.
Yeah, I've done 24 hours, 36 hours. I've fasted for this much time. And I noticed that I feel a certain type of a second wind, so to say, at that 20 hour mark. And then I studied some stuff about autophagy. Can you tell people what autophagy means?
Autophagy is when your body is eating its own cells. So when cells die, when cells are consuming themselves, the basic concept is that when you're fasting, initially all of your dependence is on the glucose level that is already there. And when the glucose level dips, that's when you feel that low. You feel tired, you feel like you have a low mood, get cranky, hangry. But if you power through that, your body shifts into its second source of metabolism, second source of energy, which is fats and proteins. And once that shift happens, the better it gets at this. There is a process that's called gluconeogenesis. So new glucose gets formed from these other sources. And it's like your body is learning that, oh, wait, I didn't have to panic. There was so much energy in my body. That is the second wind phenomenon.
Correct.
Which is a very interesting thing because you just have to power through that moment of panic. I'll give you a different analogy. It's very different, but I tried free diving.
Free diving?
Free diving is when you go underwater without a scuba tank or oxygen tank or anything.
It's called crazy.
No, it's a whole sport where you just take a deep breath, you learn to pack your lungs with air and you go down. And the first few times I did it, I panicked in 8 to 10 seconds. The fourth time I did it, I just stayed there, let myself panic. And after 5 seconds, it stopped. And I could be underwater for a whole minute.
Wow.
Because that's how long you can hold your breath. You can hold your breath for a minute if you practice. People have held their breaths for like 10, 12 minutes. But that initial panic has nothing to do with oxygen levels. Just like your initial hangriness has nothing to do with actual energy level. It's just your body not being used to it. So when you're fasting and you power through that, you'll suddenly come into this whole space of, oh, I have so much energy. I didn't need to worry.
Interesting. Do you fast?
I have tried it. So I've done 24. I have not done 36. I've only done a single day fast. But I've done that 3-4 times. And it's challenging every time because I don't do it, regularly. I do it once in a few months.
Yeah, same. Not regularly. But it's amazing. But it's interesting how so many things that were prescribed by religious activities
absolutely
actually had scientific backing
Yeah.
to it. As part of the, every younger generation finds these activities to be, this is, a religious thing. Yeah. But now, the older I get, the more I realize that, hey, so much of scientific thinking went behind some of these activities, because if you're religious, you're probably fasting regularly.
Correct.
Most of the religions prescribe it.
Yeah. A lot of religion solves for the most basic problems of life. Because these problems have been solved through observation, right? Over centuries, basically. The only thing that is different is the explanation.
Correct.
Kyun karna chahiye? And very honestly, I get why they would invoke a higher power and put the threat of hell or whatever, because that's the only way to get things done.
Correct.
But the things that
it is the antidote to chaos, a higher
pretty
power.
Much, right? So you need something to ground you. You need something to give you purpose. But at the end of the day, your action is what matters. As long as you're fasting regularly, waking up in the morning, sleeping well, and not. If you look at the 7 sins in Christianity. Can anyone argue against them?
Correct.
Right? Don't be greedy. Don't be lazy. These are very basic things that we somehow have to wait for life to teach us. So religion has solved for a lot of these basic problems. If we can just follow their protocols, even if you don't believe in any of it, you will still have a better life.
All right, Sid, that was a lot of super interesting stuff that we covered. We hope that some of this stuff was useful to you. If you watched the whole episode, do give Sid a follow on all his social media profiles. The names should be flashing on your screen right now. And if you enjoyed this, then do subscribe. There'll be more episodes about more things to do with food. This was BigBasket presents Decoding Nutrition with me. Thank you so much, Sid, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
See you next time.